What if your brain was never designed to make you happy? What if the anxiety, overthinking, and constant feeling that something is missing isn't a personal failure at all, but a survival system running exactly the way it was built to run? Because your brain has one primary job: keep you alive, not peaceful, not fulfilled, alive. And that explains something most people never realize. Happiness isn't something the brain naturally creates. It's something the brain learns. The brain becomes better at whatever it repeatedly practices, which means many people aren't practicing happiness at all. They're practicing stress, comparison, distraction, and overthinking. Here are 10 habits that help train the brain in the opposite direction. The first habit is about catching a negative spiral before the brain locks it in. Most people assume negative thinking becomes a problem after it's been running for a while, 20 minutes in, an hour in. But the brain often locks in the pattern within the first few seconds. One thought appears, an awkward silence, an unanswered message, a small mistake, and immediately the brain begins building a story around it. What if they're upset with me? What if this gets worse? One thought becomes 20. Neuroscientists call this rumination, the brain replaying the same loop, searching for a resolution it almost never finds. Instead, it reinforces the circuit. The moment the spiral begins is when interruption is most effective. Look at something in the room. Feel both feet on the floor. Notice a sound nearby. Research on attentional control suggests shifting sensory focus can interrupt the prefrontal cortex's tendency to loop on unresolved thoughts. Attention works like a spotlight. Whatever it repeatedly lands on grows stronger. The second habit is about something the brain quietly gets wrong every single day. The brain doesn't treat positive and negative experiences equally. Bad experiences encode automatically, quickly, and deeply. Good experiences don't. They require deliberate attention to stick. This is called negativity bias. It evolved as a survival mechanism. Missing a threat was once far more dangerous than missing an opportunity. So the brain learned to weight negative information heavily. Today, that same system quietly erodes happiness. 10 compliments arrive. 1 criticism lands. Most people remember the criticism. The counteraction is simple but rarely practiced. When something good happens, a genuine laugh, a calm morning, a moment of connection, don't immediately move on. Pause for 10 to 15 extra seconds. Let the feeling stay. Research in neuroplasticity suggests holding positive experiences in awareness long enough helps consolidate them into longer-term memory. Giving good moments more time is how positive patterns get built. The third habit is about something most people don't realize is draining them. The modern brain processes more information in a single day than many people throughout history encountered in weeks. Notifications, headlines, videos, messages. The nervous system was not designed for this volume. What often gets labeled as anxiety is sometimes the brain running at an unsustainable processing load. The habit isn't a digital detox. It's creating small recovery windows. A walk without headphones, 1 meal without a screen, 5 minutes outside without checking anything. Initially, the silence feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is itself revealing. Over time, those quiet windows allow the brain's default mode network to reset. Clarity and emotional regulation tend to improve when the brain gets space to consolidate rather than just consume. The fourth habit involves something the brain and body share that most people underestimate. Within minutes of physical movement, blood flow to the prefrontal cortex increases. The brain releases endorphins and serotonin, which plays a central role in mood regulation. Even moderate exercise lowers cortisol, the primary stress hormone. The effect is measurable and happens quickly. The common misunderstanding is that movement requires intensity to count. It doesn't. A 20-minute walk activates nearly the same neurochemical response as a structured workout. A problem that feels impossible sitting still often looks completely different after 10 minutes of walking. That's not coincidence. It's chemistry. The fifth habit is one most people think they're already doing but aren't. Many people stop working but never stop mentally working. The body sits still. The mind keeps running, reviewing the day, anticipating tomorrow, rehearsing outcomes. The brain requires genuine recovery the same way muscles do. During deep sleep, the brain's glymphatic system activates, clearing metabolic waste that builds up during waking hours. Research from the University of Rochester found this system is nearly 10 times more active during sleep than while awake. Chronic sleep disruption impairs emotional regulation, increases stress reactivity, and weakens the prefrontal cortex's ability to override the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. A brain that never fully recovers becomes faster to fear, slower to reason, and harder to calm. Rest isn't a break from productivity. It's the condition that makes everything else function. The sixth habit is something most adults quietly stop doing without realizing what they lost. Children play without needing a reason. Adults rarely do. Somewhere along the way, most activities acquire a purpose. Hobbies become goals. Leisure becomes optimization. Play activates the dopamine reward system without attaching it to performance outcomes. It creates engagement and enjoyment that are self-contained, not dependent on results. This appears to have unique effects on creative cognition and stress recovery. The question we're sitting with: what did a person enjoy before everything needed a reason? Bringing even a small version of that back, not to improve, not to perform, just to experience, reactivates neural circuits many adults haven't used in years. The seventh habit involves something happening inside the mind that most people never examine. The brain responds to repetition, not truth, repetition. Thoughts that repeat frequently enough begin to feel like facts, not because they've been verified, but because they've become familiar. Phrases like "I always fail" don't describe reality. They describe a neural pattern that's been reinforced. The shift isn't forced positivity, it's accuracy. "I always fail" becomes "that attempt didn't work." "I can't handle this" becomes "this is difficult right now." These aren't small word changes, they're structural changes to how the brain frames situations. Over time, accurate framing reduces catastrophizing and builds a more resilient baseline. The eighth habit is about something most people protect the least. Attention is one of the most underprotected resources the brain has. Whatever it repeatedly lands on begins shaping emotional reality. The brain's neural pathways are sculpted by experience. Content consumed daily, people spent time with, information repeatedly absorbed. These aren't passive inputs. They're instructions the brain uses to calibrate what normal feels like. Most people manage their diet carefully, and their attention not at all. The habit is simply noticing what enters the mind every day, and whether it leaves things better or worse. The ninth habit reveals where most suffering actually lives. Most suffering doesn't live in the present moment. It lives in two other places: the past and the future. Regret, replayed conversations, worst-case scenarios on a loop. The present moment is almost always quieter than the story the brain is telling about it. Studies show that regular present moment attention reduces activity in the amygdala and strengthens the prefrontal cortex's regulatory capacity over time. Presence doesn't require a formal practice. It's available in ordinary moments: feeling water while washing hands, tasting food slowly, fully listening when someone speaks. Small moments of presence accumulate, and a brain that practices returning to now gradually stops treating imagination as reality. The 10th habit is the reason the other 9 eventually become automatic. The brain doesn't change through intensity, it changes through repetition. Most people wait for a transformation, a moment when everything clicks. But the brain rewires through small actions performed consistently over time. A few calm breaths in the morning, a daily walk, one interrupted spiral. Over days, these carve neural pathways. Over weeks, those pathways become the default. Over months, the default becomes identity. Researchers call this long-term potentiation, the process by which neurons that fire together consistently begin to wire together permanently. The change rarely announces itself. One day a person simply notices they recovered from stress faster, that a quiet morning felt genuinely good, not because life became perfect, because the brain stopped defaulting to threat. Happiness isn't a personality type, it isn't a circumstance, and it isn't something some people are born with and others aren't. It's a pattern, built slowly, through what the brain repeatedly practices. The brain available today is not the final version. It's the version existing habits have shaped so far. And the research is consistent. The brain retains the ability to change throughout life. Neuroplasticity doesn't close, which means the question isn't whether the brain can rewire. The question is what it's being trained on. Pick one habit, just one. Practice it today and again tomorrow. Because the brain doesn't need a dramatic shift to begin changing direction. It just needs a new pattern repeated long enough to become familiar.